The first rays of dawn crept over the dense forest, painting the morning mist with hints of gold and amber. Sarah Martinez gripped her steaming coffee mug, her eyes scanning the perimeter of her carefully cultivated off-grid sanctuary. 15 acres of wilderness stretched before her, a hard-won dream that had taken years of planning, sacrifice, and relentless determination to create. She remembered the day, 5 years ago, when she had first discovered this plot of land. A former environmental engineer from Seattle, Sarah had grown disillusioned with the constant noise, pollution, and soul-crushing routine of city life. The corporate world had nearly broken her spirit, pushing her to the brink of complete burnout. Her decision to leave everything behind wasn't impulsive. It was a calculated escape, meticulously planned down to the last solar panel and water filtration system. The small cabin she had built with her own hands stood as a testament to her resilience. Every log was carefully selected, every nail precisely driven. Solar panels glinted on the south-facing roof, a wind turbine quietly hummed in the near distance, and a complex rainwater collection system ensured her complete independence. This wasn't just a home, it was a carefully engineered solution to modern living's most pressing challenges. Her morning routine was as precise as her engineering background demanded. First, check the solar battery levels. Then inspect the greenhouse where she grew most of her own food. Next, verify the perimeter security systems, a network of subtle motion sensors and discrete cameras that blended seamlessly into the natural landscape. But this morning felt different. A slight movement caught her peripheral vision. Something was off. The usual morning bird calls had gone silent, and a strange tension hung in the air. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to the small of her back, where her compact emergency radio was holstered. Years of wilderness survival training had taught her to trust her instincts. The forest, which had always been her closest companion, now seemed to hold its breath. Her Australian shepherd, Max, suddenly went rigid. His ears pricked forward, a low growl rumbling deep in his throat, a sound she had rarely heard in their years together. Something was definitely wrong. Sarah's mind raced through potential scenarios. Wildlife occasionally wandered near the cabin, bears, coyotes, the occasional curious deer. But this felt different. This felt like an intentional intrusion. Slowly, she set down her coffee mug. The ceramic made a soft click against the handcrafted wooden table she had built during her first winter on the property. Every item in her home had a story, a purpose, a memory attached to it. And now something threatened to disrupt the delicate balance she had created. Little did she know the next few moments would change everything she had worked so hard to build. The silence was about to be shattered. The crunch of footsteps on dry leaves broke the morning stillness. Sarah moved with calculated precision, her body low and controlled. Max remained at her side, a perfect blend of protective instinct and disciplined training. She had spent years teaching him to be more than just a pet. He was her partner, her early warning system. Through the strategically placed windows, designed to provide maximum visibility while maintaining optimal camouflage, Sarah caught a glimpse of movement. A figure, dressed in dark clothing, was carefully making its way through the tree line. This was no lost hiker or curious wildlife researcher. The deliberate approach spoke of intention. Her mind flashed back to the warnings she received from local rangers when she first settled here. This region, while remote, wasn't entirely uninhabited. Illegal marijuana grows sometimes dotted the more isolated mountain regions. Land disputes and territorial tensions weren't uncommon. Sarah's hand moved silently to a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard. Inside lay her satellite phone, a high-powered radio, and a carefully maintained firearm. Not for aggression, but for protection. A last resort in a world that could turn unpredictable in an instant. The intruder was getting closer. Max's body was coiled like a spring, a low warning growl barely escaping his throat. Sarah placed a single hand on his collar, a silent command to stay calm. Years of wilderness survival had taught her that panic was the most dangerous weapon an intruder could exploit. She remembered her training, both from her years as an environmental engineer and her intensive wilderness survival courses. Stay calm, assess the situation, create options. The cabin's security system, a network of motion sensors and remote cameras she had designed herself, remained frustratingly silent. Whoever was approaching knew how to move carefully, how to avoid detection. A shadow passed by the window. Male, approximately 6 feet tall, moving with a deliberate stealth that suggested military or professional training. This was no random encounter. Sarah's breath remained steady. Her heart rate, typically a reliable metric of her emotional state, barely increased. Years of high-stress corporate meetings and wilderness survival had given her an extraordinary ability to remain calm under pressure. The footsteps stopped. Max's ears twitched. A moment of absolute silence descended, the kind of quiet that precedes something momentous. Then, a sharp crack split the morning air. Someone was trying to force the back door. The reinforced back door held, a testament to Sarah's meticulous preparation. She had replaced the standard wooden frame with a custom-made steel-reinforced structure, complete with multiple locking mechanisms she'd installed herself during her first year on the property. What most would see as paranoia, she considered practical survival planning. In one fluid motion, Sarah moved to her emergency communication center. It wasn't just a simple radio setup, but a sophisticated communication hub she had engineered herself. Multiple backup systems, including a long-range satellite communication device and a high-frequency radio, stood ready. Her engineering background hadn't just been about solving corporate problems. It was about creating fail-safe systems. Max remained positioned by the door, his body a perfect blend of tension and controlled energy. Sarah knew her dog could be both a deterrent and a last line of defense if things escalated. The intruder wasn't giving up. A series of calculated strikes now came against the door, someone who knew exactly how to test a structure's weak points. Each impact was deliberate, methodical. This wasn't a random act of vandalism. This was something more targeted, more intentional. Sarah's mind raced through potential scenarios. In her 5 years of off-grid living, she'd encountered curious hikers, lost hunters, and the occasional wildlife researcher. But this felt different. The precision of the approach, the calculated nature of the intrusion, it suggested something more sinister. She activated her first line of defense, a series of exterior floodlights designed to eliminate any potential hiding spots. Powered by her solar array, the lights blazed to life, turning the forest's edge into a near-daylight environment. If the intruder was trying to remain covert, that advantage was now gone. A muffled curse came from outside, male, deep-voiced. Definitely not a local hiker who had simply lost their way. Sarah's hand moved to her communication system. She had a direct line to the nearest ranger station, established years ago as part of her initial settlement agreement. But something held her back. Something in her gut told her the calling for immediate help might escalate the situation in ways she couldn't predict. The strikes against the door continued, now with increasing intensity. Whoever was outside was growing frustrated, losing the careful control they had maintained moments before. Max's growl grew deeper, a sound that was part warning, part promise of imminent protection. Then suddenly, everything went silent. The absence of sound was more terrifying than the previous assault. Sarah knew one fundamental truth about survival. Silence often meant something was about to happen, something unexpected. Her hand slowly moved toward the hidden compartment where her firearm was stored, not out of aggression, but out of a cold, calculated preparedness that had kept her alive in countless challenging situations. The next moment would change everything. The silence shattered with a thunderous crash. The back door, her meticulously reinforced, custom-engineered barrier, exploded inward. Splinters of steel and woofs scattered across the cabin floor like deadly shrapnel. Max lunged forward, a blow of fur and fierce protection. But the intruder was prepared. A sharp crack split the air. Max yelped and crumpled, a dark stain spreading across his tan and white fur. Sarah's world narrowed to a pinpoint of pure survival instinct. Her training, years of corporate crisis management, wilderness survival courses, and a lifetime of strategic thinking crystallized into a single moment of absolute clarity. The man who entered was not what she expected. Not a drug runner, not a random thief. He was clean-cut, dressed in clothing that suggested military or law enforcement background. His tactical movements, the precision of his approach. This was someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "Sarah Martinez," he called out, his voice a controlled baritone. "We need to talk." She remained hidden, a mind racing through potential escape routes. The cabin had been designed with multiple contingency plans, hidden passages, emergency exits, backup communication systems. Years of paranoia, or as she preferred to call it, strategic preparedness, were about to be tested. Max whimpered softly, and Sarah's heart clenched. Her dog was hurt, but not fatally. The shot had been calculated, a warning, not an execution. "I know you're here," the intruder continued. "I know about the files, about what you discovered at Horizon Environmental." Those words stopped Sarah cold. Horizon Environmental, the corporation she had left behind 5 years ago. The reason for her complete disconnection from her previous life. The secret she thought she had buried deeper than anyone could ever find. Her past had finally caught up with her. The intruder moved carefully through the cabin, each step measured, precise. He knew the layout, or had studied it extensively. Sarah's carefully constructed sanctuary now felt like a trap of her own making. Her hand inched toward her emergency communication system. One press, and a pre-programmed distress signal would alert the local ranger station and 3 separate emergency contacts she had established when she first went off-grid. But something made her hesitate. This wasn't a random attack. This was something far more calculated. "I'm not here to hurt you," the man called out. "I'm here to protect you." Sarah knew better than to believe those words. In her experience, people who claimed to protect often had the most to gain from keeping her silent. Max struggled to his feet, bleeding but defiant. The dog's loyalty was unwavering, even wounded. The game of cat and mouse was just beginning. And Sarah Martinez was done running, but she wasn't about to be cornered. The tension in the cabin grew thick enough to suffocate. Sarah knew every inch of this space, every shadow, every potential hiding spot, every possible line of sight. Her years of engineering precision had transformed this cabin into more than just a home. It was a fortress, a sanctuary, and now, potentially, a battleground. "You have exactly 10 seconds to explain why you've invaded my home," Sarah called out, her voice steady and controlled. No tremor, no fear, just pure, calculated determination. The intruder stopped moving. "Horizon Environmental isn't what you think it was. The files you copied, the ones you thought you buried, they're just the tip of the iceberg." Sarah's mind raced back to that final day at Horizon, the environmental impact reports that never saw the light of day, the data she had discovered about systematic environmental violations that went far beyond corporate negligence. She had walked away, taking digital copies of documents that could have brought the entire corporation to its knees. Max lay near her feet, wounded but alert. His breathing was labored, but his eyes never left the intruder. "My name is Daniel Rodriguez," the man continued. "I'm with an internal investigation team that's been trying to expose what's really happening at Horizon for years. A lie. It had to be a lie. Sarah had spent 5 years constructing this life. Solar panels that powered her entire existence, a greenhouse that provided her food, communication systems that kept her connected while keeping her isolated. Every decision was calculated, every move designed to protect her from her past. And now that past had kicked down her door. "I don't believe you," she responded, her hand inching closer to her emergency communication system. One press would alert multiple contacts, local law enforcement, a trusted lawyer in Seattle, and an investigative journalist who owed her significant favor. Rodriguez took a step forward. The moonlight streaming through the broken doorway illuminated something in his hand. Not a weapon, a file folder. "The documents you took," he said, "they're incomplete. There's more, much more. And there are people who want to make sure those documents never see the light of day." Sarah's mind flashed back to why she had left everything behind. The environmental violations, the corporate cover-ups, the systematic destruction of ecosystems for profit. She had walked away, believing that exposing the truth would put her in more danger than staying silent. Apparently, she had been wrong. Max growled, a low sound that cut through the tension, wounded but still protective, still ready to fight. "I'm not here to threaten you," Rodriguez continued. "I'm here because you're the only person who can help complete the investigation." The next moment would change everything. Sarah knew her carefully constructed life was about to be torn apart again.